And we are live. Ew. What's up, everybody? My name is Saya. My pronouns are wherever you feeling in the moment. You cannot be wrong. I am the manager of Rainbow Alley at the Center on Colfax. We're a youth program for anyone ages 11 to 21. And today we are presenting today's Summer Academy. We're doing it virtually this year. Usually we go around, get to talk to different professional businesses and things like that about what it's like to be LGBTQ in the workspace, and in different types of workspaces. And so in lieu of that, since we're, living in the reality that we live in, today we are bringing in Jake Alexander, who is absolutely amazing, y'all. Y'all are not ready for his energy. He's about to bring it to you. All the way from North Carolina. He earned his BS degree in psychology and religious studies. Ooh, did not know that. Come on, religion. From the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Is a human resource professional. Human resource, those are the people when you are in a professional setting, those are the people you usually go to if you have a personal grievance going on at work or something uncomfortable that's happening at work, that you would go to that person and report that. So he is a human resource professional, career development coach, meaning he's going to get your career life together, and is an executive recruiter, meaning that he recruits people to get jobs. Like he likes to keep people employed, and he likes to make sure people can pay their rent and get food. Right. So really, I just think that's so cool. And then after many years of working in corporate human resources, right? So he's working for other people. In May of 2018, he started his own business here in Denver called Top Recruit Staffing Firm. And so, y'all, if you don't know by the flyer, and I hope I'm not outing you because you're going to talk about it anyway, I really appreciate, Jake is trans, and I think it's super just relevant and important that, he's an entrepreneur in his own right and is making his own name for himself and out here just trying to he'll talk to you about what he's trying to do, because I can go on all day. But this man is awesome, and I'm super excited to get into this talk today. How are you, Jake? How you living?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, we making it in a pandemic. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Also, so tell me more about just yourself. You can talk a little bit about where you come from, or like how you got into the work that you do now.
Sure. So my background really starts in customer service. I started as a bank teller right out of getting my GED. So I actually got my GED, went into the workforce, and decided that I wanted to continue my education. And then I went and got my associate's degree. Then went on and got my bachelor's degree in psychology and religious studies. So as Saya so nicely introduced me, I got my degrees at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So that's a little bit about my credentials, a little bit about my personality. I like to do fun things. I like to get out and about. I'm really a people person, which is probably how I got pulled into HR and recruiting. So this is definitely a people kind of job. If you don't like people, it's not for you. It can make you not like people if you like them. But it's a great source of income. It's a way to be financially stable without having to work for the man. So I think that's the best thing about owning a recruiting business, is that you don't have to have the capital up front. You really just have to have the brains and the know-how and the want to get it going.
Yes. And I'm curious, like, what drove you to this specific career path? Why human resources and recruiting? Why?
Well, the cliche answer that I'm going to give you is I like to help people. And I think anytime I've done an interview, that is a staple. I like to help people, but specifically, I want to help people that want to help themselves. I want to help people who may have been dealt a crappy hand in life, yet have the willpower, the know-how, to get there. They just don't have that support behind them. And that's kind of where my company comes in. We want to be able to set people up for success if they came from a background where maybe they came out as trans or gay and they were abandoned from their family and they didn't have anybody to kind of guide them in the career world. So they end up being homeless. And that's something that we want to prevent going forward in my company. We want to make sure that everyone has a fair chance and are set up for success. So that's why I started my own company. And I really got into it just because I genuinely want to help people.
I love that. And I love that you really highlighted that, that sense of there are people who don't necessarily get that coaching. And, if I'm 17 and I've been on my own for so long, there was no one to teach me how to dress for an interview. There was no one to teach me how to write a resume. I remember even for me, about to go to college, I didn't even know what a major was. So being a first generation college student, just to kind of relate a little bit. But I know that's very different from, that other experience. And so, no, I just think that's awesome work. And I just really appreciate that, someone's out here doing that type of work. Before we get too far, y'all, I wanted to bring your attention down to the bottom. If you now or as we go through get more interested in Jake's business and want to learn more about it or just stay in contact, look below. Please follow him on Instagram, I believe, right? At Top Recruit Staffing.
Yes.
And yep, you can stay up to date on what he's doing. And honestly reach out, y'all, because he loves placing people in careers and jobs and is totally down to help out a lot of different people. Before we also move forward too quickly, I wanted to just acknowledge our lovely Kendra, who is here every single time with our speakers, providing ASL interpretation for us. So just huge shout out to Rain Frog Interpreters. We really appreciate having y'all. And with that, let's just jump right on into it. So especially right now, what are some, when we're thinking about job searching, job readiness, career readiness, what is the common trend that you see coming up for people coming to you as they're in this job search process, and what solutions do you usually give them?
So a lot of times, especially right now, I'll go ahead and make it real relevant to COVID. Right now, people are losing their jobs who have been in the same positions for years. They have no idea what the job market's like anymore, and they have no idea how to craft a resume, a cover letter, or even do a virtual interview because everything now is virtual. So they're coming to me with these concerns and trying to navigate through them. And that's what me and my team do. We try to help them navigate through this time of COVID and how they can get a job still during a pandemic.
Yeah. And what about, that's so, I'm sorry. I'm just also processing what you said about folks who have been in the same position for so long and now they're kind of stuck with this, what do I do? And especially now in COVID, like, are you seeing, like, are there openings? Like, when I think about job searching, I'm like, I don't even know how I would start.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good question. And the first quick tip I'll give anybody that's looking for a job right now is go onto ZipRecruiter, go onto Indeed, type the title that you're looking for of the position that you're looking for and the location that you're looking for, and turn those job alerts on to notify you through email. I have a ton of customer service positions available. And that's because I set those alerts and got in contact with the hiring managers. So right now the hard part is getting the offer. So a lot of companies are hesitant to extend the offer. They know that they're pipelining right now. They're pipelining for the openings and for things getting back to normal. But as far as them actually extending the offer, it gets caught up right there. And unless it's an essential position. So a lot of essential positions you can get right in the door with. Remote customer service positions and things like that, it will take a little time. They will drag you along a little bit, but stay persistent and just know that when the doors do open back up for the society to go back to normal, everything will not be normal, and you'll more than likely be working from home or a remote location if that's possible. And you need to be set up for that. And that's something to think about going forward is, do you have the ability to work from home if you were offered the position to work from home?
Yeah, true. And I'm also thinking I know we just talked about COVID, which is one of the many things that's just going on in the world right now.
Right.
As we started really early on in this quarantine, we also had a lot of racial tension, a lot of awareness around that, and companies, kind of coming to the forefront more, because they don't want to lose money. They are trying to, post the right things, say the right things. What are you noticing in the realm of that, and how that's impacting job searches, and I don't know, and what just organizations are focused on?
Right. And I think there's two common trends right now, actually, that I'm seeing a lot of. And the first one that I'm really going to talk about is optics. I think that there are a lot of companies out there who look like they're doing the right thing. Their social media is on point. They're doing all the right things online. It looks like a great company to be in if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, or if you're Black, if you're an underrepresented minority. It seems like that's the place to go. But you get in the door and you realize that things aren't so great for women. Things aren't so great for underrepresented minorities. And that gap is so huge. And that affects public perception. So what they're worried about right now is more so the optics and how people see them on the outside, rather than really working within the inside of the organization to have actual outcomes of their DE&I efforts, rather than just having it look like they have it going on.
Because it's super, and like I've seen that too. It's interesting. Like the example that comes to my mind originally is Band-Aid, and how they came out with like different shades of Band-Aids. And it's like, the whole point of Band-Aid was you're supposed to put it on and it's supposed to not look like you have, it's supposed to blend in with your skin some type of way.
Right.
Like if you are brown or Black, then like, nah, that looks like a white Band-Aid just on your knee. And
Yep.
so, it's interesting, they started releasing more types of colors of Band-Aids, because like, oh, George Floyd. So yeah, let's do this now. And it's very interesting to me, because it's like, this is something that y'all could have easily have done in the past. And this is definitely not the first time someone has brought it up to you.
Right.
About it. There are other, Black-owned businesses with Band-Aids doing that same thing and that same work. And now you're just kind of like trying to capitalize on, to me, it comes across as almost trying to capitalize on racism or whatever. I don't even know how to describe it.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we have to be careful for. We're walking that thin line right now of the companies that are just putting out the T-shirts and the ones that are actually walking the walk. And I think you'll be able to tell that by history. And when things start to affect their bottom line, that's when they take action. That's not the company you want to work for. You want to work for the company that was taking action before anything happened. Starbucks is a good example of that. They've had diversity laws and regulations and policies in place since way before all of this started actually getting mainstream media attention, which another unfortunate thing is it's just now getting the attention that it deserves. But I think that that's one of the huge problems, is just seeing the optics, is just understanding where they lie. And another big thing that I'm seeing, another common trend, is that leaders are in a position where they know that they need to do something about the DE&I. They just don't know what that something is. So that really takes down the effect of, most companies really are in places where they need to be heard, but they're not saying anything. So they have, everything starts at the top. So they're having their CEOs and everyone, they're looking for representation. They're looking for somebody to reach out and say, hey, we see you, we're here for you, but they're remaining silent. And that is causing huge issues down the line, because people aren't being heard, they're not being seen. And when they look inside to the C-suite for representation, all they see are white, Christian, heterosexual, cisgendered men. And that has a huge negative impact on retention, morale, and just the livelihood of that company in general. So I think that having the top, even though they may not know what to say, people aren't looking for them to be perfect. We're all learning here. What their employees are hungry to hear is, I see you, I want to hear you, I want to learn. Please bear with me. I am going through this we're going through this together. Like, even though leaders may not know what to say, they still need to say something to let their employees know they care. And that goes a long way. It seems like a really simple throwaway sentence, but they need to know. They're eager to hear that.
And I think, too, there's even power in admitting what you don't know.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's power in saying, wow, y'all, there's all this stuff going on, and I don't know what the response is. I don't know how y'all feel. I don't know anything about this. And, I want to make space for, what does it look like to have someone who is making space in that workspace and things like that. And I know we're focusing a lot on kind of this PR and social justice really focus end on things at the beginning. But I actually think that's a really good thing for us to focus on at first, right? Because when you are thinking about careers and you are thinking about the jobs that you eventually want to be in, these are questions that you're going to want to think about. These are questions that you're going to want to ask and be researching before you commit to a job that you may be in for 5 years, maybe in for a year. A year is a long time, right?
Absolutely.
You may be in these places. So it's important to really, think about how your identity just from the jump kind of impacts things. And going on to kind of what our topic is today, when we're thinking about like gender ambiguity in the workplace, especially thinking about our folks who aren't, hello, can I still be heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I had a weird sound thing happen. But when we are thinking about, dang it, that made me lose my train of thought. Oh yeah, but when we're thinking about like, folks who don't necessarily fit the typical definitions of male or female, folks who live beyond the binary, are trans folks, what does that look like, job searching when you have those identities and you want to, keep your expression, keep who you are, but whatever the job site is says that's not professional, or that we don't see that, or that's not allowed.
Right. And I actually wanted to talk about this, so I made a few notes on this. And I can definitely give you micro level advice and higher level advice on this situation. I'll start with the micro level advice. So in terms of the micro level advice, I think that it's important to go ahead and set boundaries at the beginning, if that's possible. If you're just starting out at a new job, you've just started transitioning, go ahead and set those boundaries at the beginning. It really will benefit you, and I'll tell you why. It's called the anchoring effect, and that's what you do when you want to go ahead and set your boundaries in place, make it stern, make it known. And a good example is saying this: "This is who I am. These are the pronouns I use. This is how I identify. That's that," and keep it moving. You really have to anchor that in before. And I know myself, I would rather wait a couple months, make sure the coast is clear, make sure I can trust people before I start saying those things, because it is a dangerous world. However, if you try to change someone's mental image of you 2 or 3 months down the road, that's way harder than doing something authentic at first. It may seem harder to be authentic at first, but in reality, it's going to be way harder to change their mind down the road. I mean,
or even to, on that point, I think even to say it's going to be hard to say it up front, and it's going to be harder down the road if you do decide to wait. And because I have also experienced that too, of, do you, and, then the question comes on, do you want to work for a place that is transphobic? Do you want to be in that environment? And at the same time, I understand that, like, it comes down to, well, the bills don't matter. The bills don't care. The bills don't care if my employment place is transphobic or not. Like, the rent is due. And so I totally get those points too. I don't know, what advice would you give to folks who are trying to navigate that balance?
Yeah, I think a little bit of the higher level advice that's going to be more specific to people that are actually still in the organizations and maybe are trying to navigate that right now would be to find out how supportive your manager is. Because in my experience, that has a whole lot to do with how your experience will be. I've had trans friends who have had horrible experiences in companies who claim to be all liberal, great, wonderful rainbows and butterflies. But
Mhm.
despite all of those policies, they had a horrible experience because their manager was not supportive. And on the flip side of that, I've had people who've been in organizations who aren't so great, don't have discriminatory laws in effect at all, yet they have a wonderful manager who supports them, and they've been able to advocate for themselves and really thrive within that company. So it really has to do with the individuals that you're around, and you can't guarantee that everyone is going to be accepting or supportive of you. But the main person is always going to be that manager, and find out how they are with your transition or how you identify at work. And that can really take you down this road or that road.
True, it's a gamble.
Right. It really is. It really
It's the
is.
journey.
And, more importantly, if they're not supportive, lay low. Like it's not something that's fun, not advice that I like to give, but if it seems like it's going to be a dangerous situation, you kind of can feel that out at first. You kind of know if you're in a situation where you should just keep it under wraps for time being.
Mhm.
It's
And
definitely more
and your
important.
job searching like on the offside, just like, okay, we gonna we
Right.
gonna get out here.
Exactly. But we can talk about that later, and how, we can navigate through that if you're trying to find a company outside of the company that you're looking or that you're currently working in.
No worries. So let's change gears a little bit. So when we're thinking about LGBTQ identified business owners, what is something that, and I think too, when we're thinking about like gender and sexuality and LGBTQ orgs and LGBTQ people, right, we
Right.
forget that there is that intersection, that there is that race intersection where things aren't necessarily perfect, or just any intersection, right? So, LGBTQ people or LGBTQ businesses can still be racist, can still be classist, can still be ableist, right? We can still have those things. They can coexist, unfortunately.
Correct.
But when we're thinking about LGBTQ business owners, especially ones who are trying to figure out how to make a difference in this more heightened state of awareness, what things should small businesses be, or LGBTQ business owners especially, be looking at or doing differently?
Um, the first thing that really comes to mind is, don't assume that just because you're a part of the community that you don't have racist tendencies, notions, or things that you're unaware of that you do. We're all learning right now, myself included. As a trans man, I thought that I was the most liberal person in the world, but turns out there's a spectrum within a spectrum within a spectrum, and I have to get on board. So I myself have to understand, how to identify with people, and do I say they, them, he, she. It's learning experience for me, because just because I'm trans doesn't mean I understand everything about the trans world. So we're all learning, and I think the biggest thing to do is let your employees know that. Let them know that you're still learning and that you're learning every day. And just a lot of times, what I've realized too is managers really don't think they have that much power. Leadership really doesn't think one or two sentences will help anything or solve any issues. So they think and they say things like, "Oh well, one or two sentences won't change anything," or "The risk is way higher for me to even maybe get something wrong if I send out an email. I'll just keep my mouth shut." When in reality, like I said before, employees want to hear from the top. They want to hear their leaders say, "I see you. I want to help you. How can I help you?" So I think that really goes a long way for our leaders, is just not to assume that you know everything. Understand that LGBTQ plus is, each letter has a spectrum, and you have to understand that, and just be open to learning, and try not to assume that you know everything.
Yes, I know that's real. And that can also be disheartening for someone who is like, oh, this person, is in my community, so they should be supportive of me. And then you don't get that. And that can be very hard to deal with if you haven't dealt with that before. And I think, too, I'm learning more about, I think, in this year, when I hear people about coming out or things like that, a lot of people have these really positive experiences coming out, which is,
Mhm.
incredible. Like, I'm like, dang, I wish. But at the same time, there's also kind of this, when they are confronted with adversity or with homophobia or transphobia, it's almost like, whoa, what do I do with this?
Right.
And especially if it's, coming from, your own community, it can be very hurtful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, just within the trans world alone, I'm learning about toxic masculinity within our own little litter, and I try to avoid that because I'm from the South. Everything that I exude could be unintentionally misconcepted, and I don't want that ever. So I like to let people know up front, hey, I'm from the South. I don't mean anything. I'm still learning. I may sound Southern, but that doesn't mean that I'm on board with those crazy white supremacist ideas. All right. I want to let people know that I'm open to learning, but I don't have it all right.
Mm-hmm.
But
I want to go ahead.
But I want to make sure that I'm authentic. And I think that's another important thing that leaders need to know is just to be authentic and to let their true self show.
Awesome. I just wanted to take one quick pause. Kendra, do you need water? Bet, we got to stay hydrated.
Right.
Awesome. All right, cool beans. Got to take care of our people. And I wanted to shift gears kind of more drastically, but not too drastically. When especially thinking about young people like entering like the workforce, whether you're graduating high school or even if you are in high school and you're trying to get that side job, or you just graduated college, or you're just entering college trying to figure out how to navigate. I think especially for LGBTQ folks, there's not a lot of conversation around what does it look like to be professional in a workplace setting, or even trying to find a job, right? So even in those early stages, what do you wear to a job interview that affirms your identity and is still acceptable? I don't know, what trials and what issues or challenges do you see in that realm?
That was, again, one of the biggest issues that I had with working in human resources within corporations is the whole dress code thing. I had to be a big, scary HR corporate person, and I also had to relate with my employees. So having to dress a certain way, act a certain way, cover tattoos, hide piercings took away from being able to relate to employees because that was their personality, just like it's my personality. I would say if you're going to go into banking, just go ahead and expect to be extremely formal. Take out your piercings, cover your tattoos. The banking world's not there yet. If you're going into IT or something that you can be at home, by all means, tat it up, get your nose ring. But right now we're just in a place where HR is still so strict on dress code. That was one of my biggest issues there is people could not really be themselves in a workplace and still be professional. The line was just so hard that you had to be that conservative professional. There are some companies that aren't as strict, but I think that's where you would start looking is what you want to do. If it's something that's going to be in a corporate setting, maybe make sure you can hide those tattoos and stuff.
What about when it comes to like types of clothes? Like who's allowed to wear more feminine clothes? Who's allowed to wear more masculine clothes? Do you ever see any issues around that when it comes to like gender?
Right. And I have not run into that. That has not been something that I've came across. So for me, I can't really advise, but I can say that, again, it's going to depend a lot on your manager, even, and within dress codes. When you go into an organization, they're going to give you a packet and it's going to let you know exactly what you got to wear.
Read the whole thing.
Something that's not going to vibe with you, not going to align with your personality and will disrupt your productivity. That's not the company for you because they're not going to change for one person. That's what I've realized. That is the one thing that I do know is even if people have a problem with the dress code, they'll have to find another place to work or get in line with the dress code. So I think right now, remote work is going to be a godsend for everyone who maybe is still in transition and doesn't really know what to wear because it is still very strict one or the other right now. Unfortunately, we're not to a place where somebody that is M to F transitioning might be able to walk in 6 months on hormones and be accepted fully in that organization. That's something you'll have to know and kind of gauge on your own. Now, I have witnessed a transition but the person had been there 15 years within that company. And so they continued that transition through the company, and it was a beautiful thing. The HR team was great about that. But I haven't witnessed a bad scenario of that. I know there's plenty out there. Fortunately, I've had a good experience with the transition within the workplace, and he was able to transition from male to female, and then now whatever. And I think it wasn't a problem.
I think that's beautiful. It reminds me, well, that doesn't remind me of this, but as we were talking about dress code, something that did stick out to me, I remember in college, I was in band, and we would, have these concerts where you had to, like, if you were male, you had to wear the tuxedo, well, not tuxedo, but you had to wear, the suit with the bow tie, and, you had to look real polished, right, real mask. And then, women had to wear, like, long black dresses, a little kitten heel, nothing too scandalous, and I thought it was cool because my 1 year, the director, started class and said, okay, cool. So, the concert's coming up. Here's the dress code. He was very particular about the dress code. Do not show up, not in this dress code. And that was the first year he actually said, so we're doing this a little bit differently. Right now, we're going to just say there are two options. You can do the suit option or you can do the dress option. Pick one. And whichever one you pick, as long as it matches the dress code of that, then we're good to go. And I thought that was actually a really cool way to handle that because it wasn't out of anyone. It wasn't for any particular person. It was just kind of deconstructing or dismantling the idea of kind of sisism in that, of like, we're going to assume that since you have these parts, you need to dress like this, instead do what you want. So I thought that was really cool. I didn't take him up on that offer.
You should have.
I was in college and tired, and I'm like, I'm not about to go find no dress. I'm not doing all this.
I really wasn't trying to dress up, to be honest.
Literally, when we can do jeans and a t-shirt, I will go all out. Let me tell you. Right. Oh my goodness, my notes.
That's and
so we're shifting gears to something I think a little bit more personal. So when you were working for other people, was there ever a time that you felt like you just could not be 100% yourself? Felt like you just, didn't feel comfortable being open about yourself and your experience? And what was that like for you, and how did you cope with that challenge?
Yeah, sure. So I wasn't open as a trans man. Either before transition, I identified as a lesbian. And then once I transitioned, I pretty much stayed in the closet as soon as I passed. And so that's how I handled the first step, was staying in the closet. But, what I realized by staying in the closet is that people who hired me were under the impression that I had the same mentality and agendas they did, because I was also white from the South and a male, cis male in their mind, right? So they pretty much assumed that I would be on board with their discrimination and their backdoor policies, but I was not. I happened to be a trans man who just could blend in. And I got to witness a lot of discrimination and a lot of downright meanness behind closed doors.
Do you mind sharing are there any examples that you would mind sharing, or no?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it would be, I've had examples of when I've had trans people come into my office for an interview. So they would be within their transition. They're not really passing. So they, of course, feel comfortable to me because I identify that, and I want to let them know, hey, you have an ally here. I know you're nervous, but you're here for an interview. I'm trans. Don't worry. I'll get it out on the table because I want them to know that there is somebody on the inside. And then they start to feel comfortable and open up to me. And they'll be everything and anything that our client would want on paper to hire, right? Their credibility's there, their experience is there, everything is perfect. But as soon as I let the hiring manager or higher up know that that person was transgender, the conversation would turn to, oh no, legalities, we can't do that, blah, 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 which I knew was a load of bull crap because
here you are.
Here I am, and I transitioned just fine. I just had supportive managers along the way. And so that was the really the breaking point for me, was having I moved to Denver thinking that it would be a more open liberal state, especially in Denver. And what I came across was the opposite. And it was really disheartening. And I woke up with anxiety every day having to go into an office where I could not be myself and still had to turn away my brothers and sisters from getting employment because of what someone else thought. And so my goal and my mission still is to find those companies that care to have LGBTQ plus members a part of their team, that want to understand how to include everybody. And I want to work with those folks. So I had to get out of the setting. I stayed in the closet until I got out on my own, just because it was safer that way. I knew from what I had heard behind closed doors that it would not be in my best interest to let them know that I was trans. So I stayed in the closet. And sometimes I feel like I should have went a little further to see what I could have changed within the organizations as who I am and came out. Sometimes I do think about that, like what it would have been like if I would have came out to them instead of being scared. So I think if it's safe, if you feel safe to do that, it may benefit you and the company to have those open discussions. But I was just not at that place at that time that I felt secure enough to do that. And I wish I would have sometimes. Maybe I would have learned more and helped them learn more.
But I do want to highlight what you said too, though, about safety, because honestly, safety comes first, right? We got to live, we got to have a place to live, we got to have food, we got to have money to buy all of those things. And so sometimes it comes down to you got to play the system, which, you know, like you said before, it's terrible advice. It's not the most, you know, warm feeling, fuzzy advice. And I'm hopeful that, you know, things are kind of changing. And I don't know if you're seeing that trend of things changing. And I think you mentioned, you know, there wasn't too much discrimination since you kind of did your own, you know, recruiting strategies and connecting people that way. So I'm hopeful that like things are changing to where that's not as frequent. But at the same time, you know, the reality is we've been transphobic, homophobic for centuries. So it's hard.
I mean, it's absolutely. And it's a huge problem because we're way too far from, you know, being at a place where you won't get fired for sexual orientation. You won't be fired for your identity. You won't be fired for your hair. You know, we're way too far from being not sexually assaulted or not harassed or beat up because of how we identify. So right now, you always and forever, you have to be safe first. I mean, authenticity is important, but being safe is way more important. And sometimes you just have to go back in the closet, and that's not the best advice I want to give, but I also want to make sure that everybody's safe. And sometimes putting your identity in somebody's face is just as disturbing to them as them putting their religion or something in your face. So sometimes we just have to suck it up.
Find a job that works for you.
Or start working with me and find an employer that will be way supportive and help you along the way rather than tear you down.
Follow Top Recruit Staffing.
Right. You can start looking for another manager within your organization, start working for me, or lay low. You take your pick.
Okay, that was so awesome. Thank you, Kendra. New question. For those who haven't made the transition into, you know, having their own business, being an entrepreneur, especially for the trans and non-binary folks, where, you know, there is more discrimination, there is more challenges that you would have to overcome, probably. And I'm totally down to would love to hear more about those experiences if you have them. But any advice on, but any advice onto folks who are interested into, you know, becoming an entrepreneur, let's start there. Just folks who are thinking about starting their own business, how would they want to get started?
Yeah. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, the question is, how do we get started? And I went through the same thing. You don't have the money up front. You need this and that. I would say, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? what is your experience, and then build on those credibilities. If you don't have the money, honey, figure it out. None of us do. No entrepreneur knows how they're going to start. They just know they want to start. You figure it out along the way. And if you have the mindset to do it, you can do it. If you need help from somebody who has already been there, always reach up and out to those folks. If you're the smartest person in your circle, find another circle. You have to continue to learn and build. And if you see somebody that inspires you, that's an entrepreneur, shadow them, follow them. Just like if you have a celebrity that you just love, a lot of times we get our examples from celebrities or other role models, because if you're like me, I didn't grow up with two parents and all that goodness that you see on Leave It to Beaver or whatever. I didn't have that family. I didn't have a lot of shining bright examples. And I think a lot of it was figuring it out on my own. And if you're somebody that figures stuff out on your own, there's nothing stopping you from becoming an entrepreneur, even if you don't have the money.
Can you talk about your journey on becoming an entrepreneur and what that was like?
Yeah. So how I got started was really getting fed up with the inside of corporations. I started in HR within big corporations, and then I realized that HR was not what I thought HR was. I thought I was going to be surrounded by like-minded people who wanted to help progress things along and make things more inclusive, but I found just the opposite. It was people who were pushing that away, who were in charge, and that was terrifying to me. So then I jumped over to the agency world because you have a little more idea of the clients that you're going to be working with. So I thought. So when I went into the agency world, it wasn't necessarily the clients that were discriminatory, but the other recruiters that I was working with that wouldn't pick up the phone and call because they couldn't pronounce a name or couldn't understand a dialect, so they would hang up. Just petty stuff like that, that really, me, I don't have the patience for. And so it was many, many days waking up with crippling anxiety and not being able to be authentic, having to turn people away because they were in the same community that I was, but I was out of the closet. I couldn't help them. And it finally got to a point where I had to do something. I had to figure out how to do this on my own, even if it meant giving up $100,000 a year salary and just going for it. I did, because I wasn't sold to the devil. I sat there long enough. It took me about a year out here in Denver to realize it wasn't getting any better before I decided to make my own firm and start my own firm with its own mission and agenda to find and employ people with companies who are like-minded as myself and who want to support the community, even if they don't understand how, they still want to. So that's where I went out on my own. I decided, hey, I can do it better than you guys. I'm going to take what you're doing wrong. I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to make people happy. And I don't have to work with the bigots anymore. I work with people who I want to work with. And I think that's been the most important thing, is when things aren't right, my clients will listen. They know, hey, he's a little more enlightened on this topic than me. Let me take a listen so I don't mess this up again. And I think in agency world and in corporation, you don't have the ability to be heard. It's very hard for the C-suite to put down their agendas and their biases and their whiteness and really listen. There's not a lot of people in the companies that are in leadership positions that I trust. And I wanted to go out on my own and hire people that I could trust to take those positions within those companies, who would be somebody that we could trust on the inside, not somebody that would just throw us to the curb or fire us because of sexual orientation. So that's why I went into executive recruiting, to hire human resource managers and CEOs that are like-minded and will be in charge and be able to make those decisions for our community and misunderrepresented communities as well.
That's so cool and so awesome. I want to just take a pause, for Kendra to get water, but also for anyone watching us live, if you have questions, please put them into the comments. It could be questions about anything we've talked about so far. It could be a personal question you're having about your own journey, or of something that someone else is going through that you're wanting to be curious, that you're curious about. So please feel free to send a comment in the section, or question in the comment section, and we will answer anything you send. But let's take a pause, let Kendra get some water.
Yes.
She's working hard for us. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Um, oh my goodness, I had a thought and then it went away. Um, oh, I was curious too about thinking about resume building and qualifications and all of that hubbubaloo, which can be very complicated.
Yeah.
Something that for me has been very empowering and actually been very I don't know if profitable is the word, but has been very successful for me at least. Is I think we've been talking a lot about you sometimes you do have to stay in that closet. I've done that before. Sometimes you have to do what you got to do to survive. But I also think that there's something to be said about using gender and sexuality or your experience, race, ability, whatever that is, using that experience to your benefit and using it to something that actually makes you stand out as a candidate.
Right.
And I was actually wondering, do you have any tips on that with resume writing, or especially, or just how to express certain things in your resume?
Yeah. I think that resumes are really built to be professional. They're not built to show a lot of your personality. They're really just to show your credibility, your certifications. What it is basically, you're going to have a brief summary about what you can do, and then under that, I want to see prove to me what you just said, right? But I think resumes are a little bit cut and dry, but what we should really talk about is cover letters. And that's how you can really get your personality across and what you want to do for that company and how your assets and what your personal life and professional experiences has brought you and how you've benefited other companies and how you can be a benefit to their company. And I would encourage anyone to look into companies who are wanting help within the LGBTQ plus or just within diversity in general, who may have education on that. Look into those diversity positions. There are director of diversity positions. There are positions that you could potentially take on within these companies and be that light, be that example, and teach people hands-on how to implement policies and stick with them and understand what you're creating. And I think that's what we're missing in a lot of organizations, are people that are actually a part of the community. It's kind of like with the schools, I'll use this as an example. There are way too many people at the top making decisions for the teachers who aren't even in education. So I think that happens here as well. We have a lot of people in organizations who are making these decisions for our minorities that aren't even minorities. So it just doesn't make any sense. We need those people on the inside. So if you're somebody who has a passion for helping and has that initiative in you to educate folks and that patience to educate folks, then I would say look into being a diversity coach. Look into being somebody that goes into these companies, puts out the fire, gives them an extinguisher, and they don't have to call you again. That's what we want. We want people to be able to help and be a part of the community that they're helping.
No, that's awesome. My mind went totally blank. But yes, y'all, if y'all have questions, make sure you put them in the comments section. We will answer any of those questions. Sorry. Mine literally went blank. I don't know. I guess I'm also curious too about what are certain pitfalls for the people who are your clients. What are things that you're noticing that people are just not ready, like aren't thinking about when they're thinking about career readiness, or things that people can be doing now to prepare themselves for a job search, or where do people kind of...
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Training is a huge issue. Hands-on training is a huge issue. A lot of times we're just thrown into the fire and we do not have the training, the resources, the technology behind us for us to be successful. So even if me as the new employee has all the will in the world, all the want to in the world, if I don't have the resources behind me, I can't get the job done. And I think right now, the big corporations just see it as a people problem and not a technology problem. But it is definitely a technology problem, especially right now when we're in COVID and you're seeing businesses collapse just because they don't have the ability to go remote. When the people of my generation have been telling the managers for the past 2 years, hey, we can do this remotely. And now they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, can you help us get this set up remotely? So you always have to be 10 steps ahead of the game. And that's part of working with a recruiter and working with somebody who's outside of the corporation, a third party, to give you the truth. Because a lot of time recruiters are going to glamify things and make things sound like what they're not, just to get you to take the job. And what we do at Top Crew is just the opposite. We're very, very honest about that corporation and everything that they represent. We let that be your decision. And our job is to always find those ones that are going to be more supportive. We can't guarantee that every single person in the organization is going to be supportive, but we can guarantee that the higher ups and the managers that we're talking to are on board with our agenda.
And that's honestly, like you said before, that's where it really counts, because
Right.
it's nice to have that supportive, bottom atmosphere, but, the power really exists up top. And so, at least I remember when I was a delivery driver somewhere, I had a cool manager, and there was this really homophobic guy, and he would like talk about me when I wasn't there, and next thing you know, like we weren't on the same shifts together because the manager was like, okay, we won't switch that up because that don't make no sense. And he knew I was going to switch my shifts. He knew that wasn't happening at all.
Right.
And so, but like, yeah, sometimes, having someone in those higher up places can like help you advocate for yourself, or at least change things around, even if it is, public service, or not public service, but, more working class, like server, retail, things like that. Just having those relationships can actually, benefit you when it comes to like scheduling, or, maybe that person will be talked to, or I don't know how they would handle it, and different places deal with things differently. But yeah.
Yeah. No matter the organization, no matter the size, no matter what, the method should be the same. Everyone's safety should be first. And if that manager doesn't see it that way and keeps you on shift with somebody who's been derogatory to you or disrespectful, it's time to get out of that company. It's time to either talk to somebody above that manager and see what they do, or start working outside and looking for something else. And I'm here to help with that all day long, because the last thing I want is somebody to not be able to be authentic, or be authentic and get made fun of or bullied or harassed, or even worse, hurt for it. That's not something that should even be happening. But since it does, we have a setup for that.
Hey, that's awesome. And I'm also curious, so what are certain mistakes that, especially like younger folks who are entering the job market, what are certain mistakes that you see like people who are new to this making as they're like trying to start their careers early on?
I'm not even going to say it's more the people that are going into the field as the people that are already in the field that can't accept the people that are into the field. I wouldn't say that the generation, mine or the one below me, is doing anything wrong or doing anything that they shouldn't do. I think that it's just hard for the other generations to accept, as they understand a 9 to 5, sit at your desk, certain thinking, whereas some other generations are more open to being at home or working in different places, or not necessarily on a 9 to 5 schedule. So right now, I think the clash is just the generational
culture.
Exactly. It's how does this manager of this generation manage a person of this generation? To go out the door if this manager doesn't figure it out, right? So
the baby boomers and Gen Z clash.
Right. So we have a lot of retention issues right now. Before COVID, before all the hype, and before everything got crazy hostile this year, we were having issues. Anyways, I'm just glad that it's now being put towards the light, that those people that are the problem are going to be held accountable. And that's what I'm here to do. And what others like you are here to do. We're here to hold these people at the top accountable, because they are our leaders, and that we shouldn't have to worry about our safety.
What about things people maybe can be, I don't know, I think we see this meme a lot too about every job wants you to have a BA, MA, PhD, Grammy, Emmy, so you can come in entry level. And, can we talk about that myth, and, how true is it? What are things, and like also how can we reframe like experience?
Sure. I think a lot of it definitely stereotype for sure, but a lot of it is actually real. You go into a job interview and they want somebody with 15 years of experience, and you're sitting there and you're like 20. So that's not going to work out, but they called you in. So a lot of times, I think right now, to get past that is show how your age can benefit the company, no matter how old you are. I've had candidates here recently who have been at middle age, have been managers their whole life, but have lost jobs because of COVID, and have had to restructure their resume, restructure their thinking, restructure how they do interviews, hiring, everything. But because they were able to catch on, no matter their age, and they had an open mind and a willingness to learn, they were employed a month later after they got laid off. So it's just about keeping that open mind, understanding that things are going to change. It's going to be difficult, but if you have a willingness to learn, if you have an open mind and you're determined, anything that you do, anything that you want to do, you will excel at. So I can't say that anybody's doing anything wrong when they're coming into the workforce right now. I would just say there's a
especially right now
flash in culture, and just keep doing you, boo-boo.
Oh, Boo Boo King. I love the sassy ASL interpretation when it happens.
I know, me too.
I don't know. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would want to touch on?
I guess I haven't really talked about name legality and the actual legality that throw us off as trans people, and probably the managers and HR.
Honestly, I need that talk because my name is also not legally changed or anything. So like, I'm ready.
Yeah, so you can definitely be in an organization without your name being legally changed. You can go through all of that within the organization. Again, HR manager and your direct manager need to be supportive. You got to be upfront with them, and you got to let them know, hey, this is not my legal name, but this is what I want to go by. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is how you find out if your manager is supportive. They can and should change your name to your preferred name on everything within the company. If you get emails, if you get regular mail, if you have a name tag, it should match your name that you prefer to go by, whether it is legal or not. Reason being, it is not a legality to have to go by your legal name in a business, because we know there are nicknames all across the board when you go into a corporation, right? Sure. If they're giving you backlash on that, go find other companies or other places, or bring up another experience where you've had a manager be able to change your name to a nickname or something like that, to show them that this is legal. You can and should change my name to what I prefer. Have that conversation. And, another thing is, while you're going through that, the company itself should do everything in their power to keep your identity, your gender, all of that concealed. HR shouldn't be having this conversation with anybody. You and your manager are the one that need to have the conversation. You and HR need to have the conversation. HR and your manager do not have to have the conversation unless you're in the room. So you guys have to make sure that your superiors are on board, and it can be totally possible. I have plenty of friends who work in huge corporations that have gone through their name change within the organization, and they were able to have their preferred name within the system, within everything that they did, until everything was legal. If you get backlash, come to me. Go to SIA. There are dedicated people at the center to help you with diversity as well. I know for a fact, lawyers. I'm gonna name drop Johnny on that one. He is awesome when it comes to enlightening folks on diversity and how they should handle it. So I would say that if you're having issues, you have support here, and it should be circumstantial. Most likely it will be circumstantial. So if you're getting backlash, come to me, come to Taya, anything that you need, we can help you if it's circumstantial, but always, always, always put your safety first.
And with that, also in the application process, right? A resume, a cover letter is not a legal document.
Right. Resume is not an application. You will have to put your legal name. And that's why the conversation with HR and hiring manager is so important. Before you go through all that work, before you go through all them interviews, before you get to that point, you have to let them know, because if not, you just wasted 3 months of your life for a position you ain't gonna get now. So you got to be upfront, because you need to know whether they're going to be accepting or not, because you don't want to be in there a month later and then find out that your HR manager is about to fire you after you just booked your vacation. So that happens because in at-will states, regardless of their non-discrimination policies, it can happen. There are laws, there are plenty of lawmakers working on this, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that other people that have more power than I am understand and are trying to get this settled to where you can't just fire people. But that is still a thing, especially in the South and in the Midwest. Colorado is an at-will state. You can be fired for breathing the wrong way, just so you know. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, and I think too, we haven't talked a lot about protecting yourself and knowing your rights in that way. What when you think about the legality of things and at will states, and what other I don't know, pitfalls, or just especially in terms of like policy, should we be like should LGBTQ folks just be aware of in general when they're entering the workforce, and like as to what their rights are and what is right versus what is wrong.
Right. And I'll touch lightly on the rights just because I'm not an attorney and I don't want to give any legal advice or anything like that. But I do. I know an attorney personally that if somebody does have specific questions about their rights, I can definitely refer her to them to get those questions answered, because I don't want to say the thing or say something wrong. My only advice right now is just to make sure that you're safe. And if you don't feel safe, don't say anything. If you have questions about your rights and your legalities and things like that, definitely get in contact with me and I can refer you to an attorney who can definitely help you.
So what if you got questions, y'all? I'm telling you, Top Recruit Staffing on Insta.
Yes, if you have questions, especially legal questions and rights and things like that, we won't get too much into that, but I can definitely refer you over to an attorney that can definitely take care of you.
Absolutely. Any questions from anyone watching live? Any questions that we can help out with? Or maybe we're just so good that we just answered all of the questions. Love that.
Watching,
But anything else that maybe we haven't touched on that you did want to touch on, Jake?
I would just say if you are struggling with your resume, if you're struggling with cover letters, LinkedIn, or how to navigate the career world, period, just contact us at Top Recruit Staffing and we'll be happy to help you navigate. We'll be happy to help you with any of your questions or concerns when it comes to the career world, because it is hard. I didn't have someone to help and guide me all the time. So I found people along the way that just happened to be blessings and helped me get there. So I am extending a lifeline. I'm extending the rope. If you need help in any way for your career, education, if you're planning on going to college and you're not sure exactly how to fill out your FAFSA form, I've been there, I've done that. It's not easy, but I can help you. I didn't have parents to go to, so maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't, but I'm here to help in any way I can, and that's about it.
And I just wanted to shout out to when you mentioned the FAFSA and everything, there was a video or a session that we did with Brandon Bishop a while back. That's a video all about being LGBTQ in college and the things that you need to know, including like who do you go to fill out your FAFSA if you don't know what you're doing. So that if I know when we're talking about careers and things like that, everyone is in a different place, especially at a young age. Of where, like, do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to college during COVID? Do you want to go to a trade school? Do you want to just go jump right into the career force? Which is why we try to have, these two very different conversations. One very focused on college, one very focused on career, because, ultimately it comes down to you, your path, and what you want to get out of it. You can have a very successful career without ever stepping foot in a college classroom. True. I've seen it.
Very true. Very true. Mm-hmm. Well, and if that's the route you're going, you don't want to go to college and you're trying to figure out a career path that'll work for you that you necessarily may not need a degree for. Hi, I can help you.
I'm trying to hold out for questions, y'all. Trying to hold out for y'all. Y'all quiet. Any questions?
If you have questions that you don't want to talk about out loud, send me an email, send me a private email, and we can talk about it through email. We can talk about it over the phone, video, whatever you prefer. Just let me know, and I'll help you.
Awesome. So, yeah, still not having any questions showing up. I don't have anything else. Jake, did you have any final thoughts for the people?
Um, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be a part of Rainbow Alley and continue to support and help the mission there. It's been a great, great opportunity, and I'm thankful for Saya to have introduced me to everyone there and Johnny. So I'm just thankful, and I appreciate you guys letting me have the opportunity to be here.
Oh, we appreciate you. Y'all, Jay comes in with this just amazing energy. It's so great. So yeah, once again, if you cannot get enough of Jake and you need to learn more about any of the things we talked about today, even if you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to, like we've been plugging all this time, top recruit staffing on Instagram, to stay updated, to get in contact with Jake. If you are job searching, especially right now, like Jake just said, there are openings and you just need to know the right people. Sometimes I was always taught, getting a job is who you know, what you know is what keeps you there.
That's it. You're right. It ain't who you know. It ain't what you know. It's who you know.
Uh-huh. And so totally take advantage of this resource, y'all. If you are job searching and trying to find something, especially on the younger side, please come through. Reach out to one of us and we can try to connect you as much as possible. And yeah, just thank you, Jake. Thank you, Kendra, once again, Rain Frog Interpreters, for the just consistent, awesome ASL interpretation every single time. And with that, let's keep it clean, queer, and under control. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you, Kendra.